Hey everyone, I thought I might start some videos on some of my Land Rovers, and the first one I'm going to do is my 1983 Series 3 Stage 1. It is a 3.9 Isuzu station wagon and it has all the 10 seats from factory. I only just got this Series 3 Stage 1 about 6 months ago. I got a phone call from one of my former high school teachers saying that he knew a guy who knew a person who had a Series 3 Stage 1 wagon that wanted to, didn't want to get rid of it, but wanted it, he knew that it was time for it to go to someone else, and he wanted to make sure that it was going to go to someone who was going to look after it. So that's how I ended up getting it. The person who owned this before, he owned it from new, and he was 88 when I got it off him, and he's only ever owned 3 vehicles in his life, and he's really looked after it really well. Anything that he's put onto it, he's made sure that you could take off without adding any new holes or modifying anything really. Now this has been down at Lake Macquarie area most of its life, and considering it's lived down there, it doesn't really have any rust on it at all, and the body's in pretty good shape. That's because the owner before looked after it so well. Now he used it to go around Australia multiple times, especially up the top, the Northern Territory fishing, and it's got about 300,000 Ks on it. But it's still, because he's looked after it so well, it's in really good condition, and I'm not worried at all about those kilometres. He had a roof rack on it where he'd have some spare gear, and he'd also load a boat on top. I've since taken that gear off and stored it in the shed, just because it makes it a bit easier getting around, because it does lower the height and the weight a little bit, and does take a few of the rattles out if I'm trying to find something. So looking at the front of the vehicle, he has added some screen. I'm pretty sure he's added it. I don't think that was original, even though I have seen some with it, just to protect against all the insects going into the radiator and some of the grasses as well, especially for his Northern Territory trips. He's got on the front there a tow ball, which he used for moving the caravan, because he used to tow a caravan with it. And he's got a few other extras on there. He did have a few leaf springs on the front as well for the caravan, but I've taken those off and he's kept those. You can also see up the top there on the roof that it has a safari roof or a tropical roof, which I think came standard with the wagons, at least with the later Series 3 wagons. You can see down the side here it's got some side bars or brush bars which go onto the chassis. It's also, the rims aren't the original rims. I do have the original rims, but these are galvanized rims, and that was because he was down at the coast, and I've still got the original rims in really good condition with probably some of the original tires on it as well. Now it's also got the steps, side steps, which for me, I don't really need to use them, but for children or some people that are a little bit shorter, I can see that they would come in handy. Now that looks a little bit strange here on the second row. These 2 holes here are the drain holes, so when the water goes down they drain out. Has the Alpine windows in there, but they are covered up because they used to sleep in the back, so they covered that up just to keep some of the sun out as well. And in the back we've got the same drain holes as what was in the second row. He's actually, the window channels have come out here, and he's just put a little bit of hose underneath, and that actually works really well because you don't really slide them open very often, but there's no rattles whatsoever, so that does work, and it does drain as well really well. So looking at the back now, you can see I've got the spare tyre, another rear step. That rear step there is probably the only part that has a little bit of rust on it. It's got a pretty big tow bar for the caravan, which he has made up himself. And on the back here there was a gas bottle holder, but I've taken that off because I don't have use for it, and also to clean the chassis from behind it. There was a little bit of flaking rust there, so I'm glad I did take that off. Now one thing I would like to show you here, which I think is really clever that he's made up. On the rear handle, because of the tyre here, it's actually quite hard to get in to open it. So he's putting this extension here, makes it really easy. So now just to have a look in the front, get in the driver's door. You have the door skins or door panels, door cards, whatever they're called, with the pocket. They're in reasonable condition. They're not perfect, but considering it's done 300,000 kilometres and this is the driver's side, which would have the most wear and tear, it's in pretty good condition. The front seats, these are the cloth style, very similar to the County or Defender ones. The other option were a black vinyl. So the Stage 1 that my dad had when I was growing up, it had the black vinyl seats in it. These are quite comfy, and as I said, they're in really good condition. He had them covered and had padding on them, and he wasn't a big guy as well, which helped. I remember because I was the youngest as a child, the middle seat was mine whenever we had a car full of people. Okay, now this has a few little extras in here. So he's put in a fire extinguisher, a radio, a few extra gauges. Besides that though, it's all fairly original. You can see that it's in pretty good condition. Even the headlining has been well looked after. So is the dash, which he actually had a carpet sitting over the top, not glued. So a lot of people glue it, which ruins it, but he just had it sitting over the top, which has protected it, so it looks like new. The Stage 1s came with the LT95, I'm pretty sure, you can check on that one. And 4-speed box, really good box, and I'm pretty sure they're about the same they used on the 101 Ford Controls and the Range Rovers. So one thing that is a little bit different with the Stage 1 compared to the Series 3s and previous is that it's constant 4-wheel drive with high-low here, which is a bit unusual, and in the middle is our, I think it's a vacuum, kind of like a vacuum center diff lock, which I think is pretty much the same as what the Army Parentis have. So another thing that's unique to the Wagons, and I think they had this possibly even from Series 1 all the way through, but definitely I know that the Series 2As and 3 had these vents, which would just pop up, and that would bring that cool air from underneath the tropical roof or safari roof. And the previous owner, he actually used to cook in here sometimes. So what he did, he put his exhaust pipe from whatever he was cooking up through there. So just having a look in the second row seat. So this is the back of the front seats. They've got this hard plastic and this bar here for to hold on to if you're in the back. And it's just one long bench seat. So that's where it gets a bit different between the Series and the 110s, because at least the Defenders, I'm not sure actually about the Counties, whether they had a single seat, but I know that the Defenders, they went to a 60-40 or 70-30 types setup. Okay, now to have a look in the rear section. So the owner had this hard rubber all the way throughout, which has protected the vehicle really well, and it helps for sliding things in and out, which they did quite a bit. So at the moment I've just got the rear seats just sitting there. They're not actually bolted in, and I don't even have the seat belts for the second row bolted in yet either, because I'm not really going to be taking people around in this, or at least not yet. But at least I've got it looking like it would from new. These seats basically are new. They were wrapped up, put in an attic, and they didn't come out of that attic and out of those bags until I bought the vehicle recently. So from here you can see that the whole vehicle is very different, probably interior wise, to an earlier series. The fact that it's got upholstery all the way around, whereas some of the others don't. And being the Wagon style, they do put more upholstery and lining in them. So looking under the bonnet, we can see that we've got the 3.9 litre Isuzu diesel, which is the same as what I've got in the Brenti. Really good engine, good on fuel. You get a lot of kilometres out of them, pretty simple. And that's probably why I'm not really that worried that this has 300,000 kilometres, because of this engine that's in it and the fact that the previous owner has really looked after it. Just wanted to show this part. I saw this on Facebook the other day. Someone who had a series, they could have been restoring it, I can't remember, and they put these little funnels with a hose on both sides of the firewall drain channel that goes underneath the windscreen, and they reckon that helped take the water away from that dripping on your foot in the footwell. So I'm not sure whether it works or not really for the dripping or the rust factor, but this vehicle doesn't have any rust, and it's just another thing that goes to show that the owner took a lot of care in looking after his vehicle by putting things in like that.